The unexpected legacy. In the quiet city of Boston, the hum of daily life surrounded Paul Foster as he sat at his desk, the glow of his computer screen illuminating his face. He was just an ordinary programmer, content with his routine, but one day, an unexpected message flickered on his screen, igniting a whirlwind of events that would change his life forever. The message, strangely formatted and adorned with alien script, shifted into English. "Zorak is dead. You are his heir. Come to Proxima B immediately." Paul blinked, disbelief clouding his mind. Zorak, his extraterrestrial pen pal of 5 years? Dead. And why would he, a simple human, be considered an heir to anything, let alone an alien's estate? As the days passed, Paul received more messages, each authenticated by complex codes that only he and Zorak knew. The gravity of the situation settled in. This was no joke. Zorak had been his friend, an alien from a distant planet, and now he was inheriting a fortune and something else. 2 weeks later, Paul found himself aboard an interstellar transport, leaving Earth behind. The ship soared through the vastness of space, passing stars and planets, as Paul drifted in and out of consciousness due to the cryosleep. His heart raced with both excitement and apprehension. What awaited him on Proxima B? When the ship finally began its descent, Paul pressed his face against the viewport. The alien world loomed before him, bathed in shades of purple and silver, with clouds swirling like a cosmic dream. As the ship touched down, a gentle thud resonated through the cabin. This was real. Stepping out of the airlock, Paul was greeted by an awe-inspiring sight. 2 figures stood before him, their otherworldly beauty taking his breath away. The taller of the two had shimmering blue skin and piercing silver eyes, while the other, shorter woman possessed iridescent scales and graceful tendrils framing her face. "Welcome, Paul Foster," the taller one spoke, her voice melodic yet resonating with an unearthly timbre. "I am Azora, first wife of Zorak." "And I am Leah, the second wife," the other added, her tone soft and musical. "And now, we are here to welcome you to your new life." Paul's jaw dropped. Wives. Zorak never mentioned anything about wives. Azora's eyes flashed with a hint of mischief. "There is much Zorak did not tell you, it seems. Come, we have much to discuss." As they led him to a sleek, hovering vehicle, Paul's mind raced. Why would Zorak leave everything to him? They were friends, yes, but this was insane. Leah, noticing his bewilderment, placed a gentle hand on his arm, sending an electric tingle through his body. "Zorak saw something in you, Paul," she explained, "something special. He believed you could bridge our worlds." "Bridge your worlds?" Paul echoed, confusion flooding his thoughts. "I'm just a programmer. I don't know anything about your world or its customs." Azora turned to him, her gaze piercing. "Precisely. You come with a fresh perspective, untarnished by our complexities. It is exactly what we need." The vehicle glided through the alien landscape, a breathtaking panorama of twisting spires and floating gardens that sparkled in the sunlight. Paul gazed in wonder, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Welcome to your new home," Leah said softly as they approached a towering structure that defied gravity. Crystalline spires twisted upward, connected by gossamer bridges that shimmered in the light. Paul stepped out of the vehicle, craning his neck to take in the full scope of the building. "This is mine." "Ours?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Azora nodded, a hint of challenge in her tone. "Correct, but remember, we are part of your inheritance as well." Paul flushed, unsure how to respond. "Look, about that. On Earth, we don't exactly." "We are aware of Earth customs," Leah interjected gently, her eyes softening. "But you are no longer just a programmer, Paul. You are now part of a legacy, a family." A mixture of emotions swirled within him, fear, excitement, and a strange sense of belonging. He was about to embark on an adventure beyond his wildest dreams, yet the weight of responsibility loomed overhead. As they entered the stunning building, the walls glowed with a soft light, and alien art adorned every surface. Paul marveled at the beauty surrounding him. "What happens now?" he asked, trying to grasp the enormity of his new life. "Now," Azora replied, her voice steady, "you will learn about our culture, our ways, and we will help you understand the legacy Zorak has left behind." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Paul's mind. What did that legacy entail? And why had Zorak chosen him to carry it forward? As they walked deeper into the heart of his new home, Paul realized that the answers lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered in the vastness of the universe that had suddenly become his playground. Little did he know that this journey would not only challenge his understanding of love and loyalty, but also force him to confront the darkness lurking in the shadows of the alien world. And as he took his first steps into this new life, Paul Foster began to realize that he was no longer just a man from Earth. He was now an integral part of an interstellar legacy that would test his ingenuity, resilience, and determination in ways he never imagined possible. Lessons of an alien world. As Paul Foster settled into his new surroundings on Proxima B, a mixture of excitement and trepidation coursed through him. The awe-inspiring architecture of his new home surrounded him, and the vibrant alien flora seemed to pulse with life. Yet, beneath this beauty, an undercurrent of anxiety rippled through his mind. What had Zorak truly left him, and how could he possibly fulfill the legacy of a being from another world? Azora and Leah guided him through the winding corridors of their residence, their presence both comforting and overwhelming. Each room revealed wonders beyond his wildest dreams, floors that shimmered like liquid silver, walls that changed color with the light of the day, and technology that seemed almost magical. Paul felt like a child in a candy store, his senses alive with the sights and sounds around him. They stopped in a grand hall, adorned with elaborate tapestries that depicted scenes of ancient battles and celebrations. "This is where we will gather to teach you about our history and customs," Azora said, her tone firm yet inviting. "Understanding our culture is essential for you to embrace your role here." Paul nodded, eager yet apprehensive. "What exactly am I supposed to do?" he asked. "I'm just a programmer. I'm not equipped for whatever this is." Leah smiled gently, her iridescent scales shimmering in the light. "You will learn, Paul. You may not realize it yet, but you possess qualities that are valuable to our people. We believe you can help us navigate the challenges we face." "What challenges?" Paul pressed, curiosity piqued. Azora exchanged a glance with Leah before answering. "There are factions among our people who resist change. They see your arrival as a threat rather than an opportunity. They believe we should maintain our isolation from your world." A chill ran down Paul's spine. "So I'm seen as a symbol of change?" "Yes," Azora confirmed. "Your relationship with us could unite our worlds or deepen the divide. It is a heavy responsibility." Paul felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He had left Earth seeking adventure, but now he found himself in the middle of an interstellar struggle, one that could either forge a new alliance or lead to devastating conflict. "Let's begin with the basics," Leia suggested, gesturing for him to take a seat at a long, oval table that seemed to float just above the ground. As he sat, a small device hovered over the table, projecting images of Proxima B's history. The first image appeared, showing a lush landscape dotted with strange creatures, all coexisting in harmony. "This is our world before the arrival of the Zarkonian Empire," Azora began, her voice echoing in the vast hall. "We lived in peace, nurturing our land and our relationships with each other." Paul leaned closer, intrigued. What happened? "The Zarkonian Empire sought to expand its power and influence," Leah explained. "They came to Proxima B, bringing war and destruction. Many of our people perished, and those who survived were forced to adapt to a new way of life." Paul watched as the images shifted to depict fierce battles, alien soldiers clashing with the native inhabitants. His heart sank at the devastation displayed before him. "And now we are rebuilding," Azora said, her gaze steady. But there are factions within our society that cling to the old ways, believing that isolation is our only salvation. They resist any collaboration with Earth and view your presence as a betrayal. What do they want? Paul asked, trying to understand the political landscape he had unwittingly entered. They want to sever ties with Earth altogether, Laia replied, her voice tinged with sadness. They believe that if we reject all outside influences, we can preserve our culture, but at what cost? Paul felt a surge of determination rising within him. I don't want to see anyone suffer. If there's a chance for cooperation, I want to help. Azora's expression softened, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of hope in her silver eyes. That is the spirit we need, Paul. But you must learn to navigate our customs and traditions if you hope to bridge the gap between our worlds. As the days turned into weeks, Paul immersed himself in learning. He spent hours studying Proxima B's history, language, and customs, while Azora and Laia became his mentors, guiding him through the intricacies of their society. He practiced their language, and though it felt foreign on his tongue, he slowly began to find his rhythm. One afternoon, while practicing a particularly complex phrase, Paul stumbled over his words, causing both women to giggle. It's a difficult language, Laia reassured him, her laughter lightening the atmosphere. But you're improving. I'm just glad I can make you smile, Paul replied, a grin spreading across his face. It's a good feeling to connect, even if it's through laughter. Over time, his relationship with Azora and Laia deepened. They shared stories of their pasts, revealing glimpses of their lives before Zorak's death. Azora spoke of her childhood on a distant moon, filled with adventures and mischief, while Laia shared tales of her love for music and art, her talents vibrant and enchanting. As their bond grew stronger, Paul began to feel a sense of belonging. He was no longer just a visitor in an alien world. He was becoming part of something much larger than himself. Yet, with every moment of joy, the looming threat of opposition weighed heavily on his mind. One evening, as they gathered in the grand hall, Azora and Laia exchanged sullen glances. Paul, Azora said, her tone serious, there is a meeting of the council tomorrow. It is crucial for you to attend. Why? Paul asked, sensing the tension in the air. They will discuss your presence among us, Laia explained. We need you to speak on our behalf. Your words could sway the council in our favor. Paul's heart raced. Me? Speak to an alien council? What if they don't accept me? They will not know unless you try, Azora urged, her silver eyes glinting with determination. You have come to symbolize the potential for change. It is time to show them what you are capable of. As the evening wore on, Paul's mind swirled with possibilities. He was terrified, but he also felt an exhilarating rush of purpose. This was his moment to step forward and make a difference. That night, Paul lay in bed, the weight of responsibility heavy upon him. He stared at the alien ceiling, his thoughts racing. How could he persuade the council? What could he say to convince them that cooperation with Earth was the path forward? Just as he was about to drift into sleep, a plan began to form in his mind. Paul understood that he needed to share his vision, one where both worlds could thrive together, blending the best of their cultures. With this resolve, he closed his eyes, determined to embrace the challenge that lay ahead. The council's judgment. The dawn of the council meeting arrived, and with it, a palpable tension filled the air of Proxima B. Paul Foster stood in front of a mirror, adjusting the intricate robe gifted to him by Azora and Laia. The fabric shimmered with hues of deep blue and silver, reflecting the ethereal beauty of the alien world around him. As he looked at his reflection, he took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions surging through him. This was not just an outfit, it was a symbol of acceptance and a bridge between worlds. Are you ready? Azora's voice cut through his thoughts, her presence filling the doorway. She looked regal, her own attire flowing like liquid starlight, a perfect representation of her status among her people. I don't know if I'll ever be ready, Paul admitted, running a hand through his hair. What if they reject me? What if they see me as just a human invader? They will not know unless you speak, Azora said, her gaze steady and reassuring. Remember, you are not here to represent Earth alone. You are here to show them the potential for unity. Paul nodded, drawing strength from her words. With one last glance in the mirror, he stepped out of his quarters and followed Azora and Leah through the labyrinth of shimmering corridors. Each step felt heavy with purpose, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. As they approached the Grand Council chamber, the architecture loomed larger and more imposing. The walls were adorned with tapestries that depicted the history of their struggles and victories, a powerful reminder of what was at stake. Inside, the council chamber was a vast oval space filled with luminescent orbs that floated above, casting a soft light on the gathering. Paul's heart raced as he stepped into the room, where a semicircle of dignitaries awaited. Each council member was distinct, showcasing the diversity of their species, some with iridescent scales, others with soft, feathery appendages, and a few with intricate bioluminescent patterns that danced across their skin. As Paul approached, whispers rippled through the assembly. He could feel the weight of their gazes, a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and hostility. At the center of the semicircle sat the elder counselor, a towering figure with deep-set eyes that seemed to glow with ancient wisdom. "Welcome, Paul Foster," the elder counselor spoke, his voice a deep rumble that resonated throughout the chamber. "You stand here today as a representative of Earth, a world that many of us have only heard about in legends. What do you seek among us?" Paul cleared his throat, feeling the weight of their expectations. "I come not just as a representative of Earth, but as a bridge between our worlds. I believe we have much to learn from one another. Our histories may differ, but our hopes for the future can align." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some nodded in agreement, while others frowned, their skepticism clear. The elder counselor leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "Many among us fear that your presence signifies the beginning of our end. The Zarkonian Empire has left scars that still bleed, and trust is a currency we cannot afford to waste. Why should we believe you?" Paul's pulse quickened. "I understand your fears. I've seen the horrors of conflict firsthand, and I know the price of mistrust. But isolation will not save you. Collaboration will. Imagine the advancements we could achieve together, the knowledge we could share. We could heal the wounds of the past instead of deepening them." A council member with shimmering blue skin stood up, her voice rising above the murmurs. "And what do we gain from this collaboration? What if your people come here, not as partners, but as conquerors? We have already lost too much." "I can't deny that risk," Paul replied, his voice steady. "But I offer you a choice. Let me show you Earth, not as a conqueror, but as a friend. Give me the chance to prove that unity is stronger than division." As his words hung in the air, another council member, a tall figure with elongated limbs and flowing golden hair, interjected. "What do you know of our struggles, human? What makes you think you can help us?" Paul took a deep breath, drawing upon the emotions he had felt during his time on Proxima b. "I have listened. I have learned. I've heard the stories of your losses and your triumphs. I may not have lived your experiences, but I can empathize. I want to help you regain what was lost, to forge a path that honors your heritage while embracing the potential of the future." A pause followed, the air thick with tension. The elder counselor's eyes narrowed as he scrutinized Paul. "You speak of empathy. What would you do if the factions among us rise against you? What if they refuse to accept your words?" "I would listen," Paul responded, his heart racing as he considered the implications. "I would learn from them, seek common ground. If we are to move forward, we must do so together, not as enemies, but as allies." Another council member, this one adorned with brilliant emerald scales, stood and spoke. "It is easy to speak of unity, but what about loyalty? How do we know you will not betray us when the tide turns?" "I'm here because I believe in this opportunity," Paul said earnestly, meeting their gazes. "I chose to leave my home behind, knowing the risks. I would never betray that trust." Just then, A loud crash echoed from the entrance of the chamber. The heavy doors swung open, and a group of Zarkonian warriors burst into the room, their armor clanking ominously. Gasps filled the air as they marched forward, their faces twisted in anger. "Foolish council," one of the warriors shouted, his voice filled with disdain. "You would welcome this human as an ally. He is nothing but a tool for our enemies. We must purge our world of these foreign influences." Chaos erupted in the chamber as council members shouted over one another, panic and fear igniting. Paul felt his heart race as he instinctively moved closer to Azora and Leah. "What do we do?" he whispered urgently. "We stand firm," Azora replied, her expression resolute. "We will not let them intimidate us. This is your moment, Paul." The elder counselor raised his hand for silence, his authority cutting through the chaos. "We will not be swayed by threats," he declared. "We have survived worse. However, we must also consider the safety of our people." The Zarkonian warrior stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "Safety? You call this cowardice safety? You will bring destruction upon us all if you embrace as human." Paul took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment bearing down on him. "I understand your fears," he said, projecting his voice. "But I believe we can build something greater together. I did not come here to conquer. I came to create a future where we can stand side by side." The Zarkonian warrior scoffed, crossing his arms. "And how do you propose to protect us from the fallout of your alliance? You have no place here." In that instant, Paul's mind raced. He needed to find a way to turn the tide. "What if I challenge one of you to a contest?" he proposed, his voice steady. "If I win, you allow me to stay and represent Earth among you. If I lose, I will leave without a word. This is my commitment to your safety and my willingness to earn your trust." Murmurs filled the chamber again, a mixture of surprise and intrigue. The elder counselor studied Paul for a long moment before speaking. "A contest? A bold proposal. What kind of contest do you suggest?" "Let it be a demonstration of skills," Paul replied, his heart pounding. "Let us show you that I am more than just a human. I can adapt and learn. We could test our abilities, whether it be in a mental challenge or a physical one." The Zarkonian warrior stepped forward, a challenging glint in his eyes. "I accept. But know this, if you fail, it will not be merely your own defeat. It will be the defeat of all who stand with you." "Very well," Paul said, feeling the weight of the challenge. "Let us set the terms and proceed. If I can prove myself, perhaps then you will see that an alliance is worth pursuing." With that, the council fell silent, the weight of anticipation hanging thick in the air. As the details of the contest began to unfold, Paul realized he was no longer merely a visitor in this alien world. He was now a pivotal part of their future, his success or failure, potentially altering the course of both their worlds forever. The contest of skills. The air crackled with tension as the council chamber transformed into a battleground of sorts. The council members exchanged hushed whispers, their faces a blend of intrigue and concern. Paul stood at the center of the room, heart racing, as he awaited the specifics of the contest. The Zarkonian warrior, whose name Paul learned was Kalfa, stood opposite him, a fierce determination etched across his face. The elder counselor finally broke the silence. "Let it be known that we will hold a contest of skills, a trial that will test the strength of both mind and body. Each participant will face 3 challenges: a test of intellect, a display of physical prowess, and a challenge that reflects our cultures." Paul nodded, steeling himself for the unknown trials ahead. "I accept these terms, but I would like to suggest that we incorporate an element of collaboration in the final challenge as a testament to the unity we seek." Kalfa's eyes narrowed. "You think you can manipulate the contest rules in your favor? Your confidence is misplaced, human. Our ways are not so easily swayed." "No manipulation intended," Paul replied, his voice steady. "I only wish to demonstrate that unity can be found even in competition. Let us not just showcase individual strengths, but rather how we can learn from one another." A ripple of murmurs surged through the council. Some members nodded in agreement, while others exchanged skeptical glances. The elder counselor raised his hand again, silencing the crowd. "Very well. We will consider your request, but know this. Every challenge must be completed. Failure in any will result in your immediate dismissal from our world." Kalfa smirked, his confidence unwavering. "I hope you're prepared, human. Let the first challenge begin." Challenge 1. The test of intellect. The first challenge was set in a small circular chamber adorned with holographic displays and intricate carvings depicting ancient puzzles. The walls glimmered with shifting patterns, each more complex than the last. Paul took a deep breath as he stepped into the chamber, the stakes of the contest weighing heavily on his shoulders. Before him lay a massive holographic interface filled with a maze of colors, shapes, and symbols. The task was clear. He and Kalthar would have to solve a series of intricate puzzles designed to test their cognitive abilities. The elder counselor activated the challenge, and a timer began to tick down ominously. "May the best mind win," Kalthar taunted, his eyes gleaming with arrogance. As the first puzzle appeared, Paul focused intently on the task at hand. The holographic shapes twisted and turned, requiring him to recognize patterns and solve equations in rapid succession. He could feel the pressure mounting as Kalthar expertly navigated his own puzzles, his movements fluid and confident. With each passing second, Paul fought against the tide of self-doubt creeping into his mind. He thought of Earth and the challenges he had faced there, college exams, job interviews, and the struggles that had shaped him. He remembered how he had learned to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success, and that thought sparked a flame of determination within him. "Focus, Paul," he whispered to himself, his fingers dancing over the interface as he manipulated the holographic shapes. He took a deep breath, allowing himself to enter a state of flow. The final puzzle materialized before him, a complex conundrum that would determine the outcome of the challenge. His heart raced as he navigated through the options, his mind racing to connect the dots. Time slipped away like grains of sand, and with a final burst of insight, he completed the final sequence. A triumphant chime echoed through the chamber, signaling his victory. Paul turned to see Kalthar still wrestling with his last puzzle, frustration etched on his face. The council erupted into a mixture of cheers and gasps. "Impressive," the elder counselor remarked, a hint of approval in his voice. "But do not celebrate too soon, human. The next challenge awaits." Challenge 2, the display of physical prowess. The second challenge took place in an expansive arena filled with towering walls and elaborate obstacles that stretched toward the domed ceiling. The council members gathered around the perimeter, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Kalthar had an undeniable advantage. He was larger and stronger than Paul, a natural warrior born to excel in physical contests. The rules were simple. The competitors would race against the clock, navigating the challenging course while overcoming various obstacles. Paul could see the intricate barriers ahead, walls to climb, ropes to swing from, and precision jumps that required both agility and strength. As the challenge began, Paul felt a surge of adrenaline. He pushed himself forward, using his legs to propel him up the first wall. He reached for the top and scrambled over it, landing with a thud on the other side. Behind him, Kalthar followed with ease, his powerful muscles giving him an edge. "Is that all you've got?" Kalthar mocked, easily clearing the first obstacle and quickly gaining ground. Determined not to falter, Paul focused on his breathing and embraced the rhythm of the race. He swung across the ropes, feeling the exhilaration rush through him as he flew through the air. With each obstacle he overcame, he found a sense of rhythm and clarity, reminding himself that he could compete with even the strongest adversaries. The finish line was drawing closer, and Paul could see Kalthar just ahead. He could feel the heat of competition igniting within him, pushing him to give it everything he had. As they approached the final obstacle, a steep wall that required both strategy and strength, Kalthar attempted to scale it with brute force, but Paul had a different plan. Use your momentum. Azora's voice echoed in his mind. He remembered her words from earlier, a reminder to think creatively. Paul took a moment to assess the wall, then ran at it, launching himself upward with a carefully calculated jump. His fingers grasped the ledge, and he pulled himself up, scrambling over the edge just as Kalfa reached the same point. Paul felt a surge of exhilaration as he leaped down on the other side, crossing the finish line before Kalfa could make it. The council erupted into cheers, their faces reflecting a mix of surprise and admiration. Paul had not only competed, he had outsmarted his opponent. Challenge 3, the cultural display. The final challenge, however, promised to be the most daunting. The elder counselor summoned them to a vast chamber adorned with vibrant murals depicting the cultural heritage of Proxima B. Paul felt the weight of expectation as the council announced that each contestant would have to showcase something unique about their respective cultures. Kalfa smirked, confident in his ability to impress. "I will show them the might of the Zarkonian people," he boasted. He stepped forward and demonstrated a traditional Zarkonian combat dance, a display of strength and agility that captivated the audience with its rhythm and power. As Kalfa finished, the council erupted in applause, impressed by his physical prowess and the cultural significance behind the dance. Paul felt the pressure mounting. He had to dig deep to find something that would resonate with the council. "Show them who you are, Paul," Leia whispered, her encouragement ringing in his ears. "Share your heart." Paul took a deep breath, remembering the stories of humanity he cherished, the resilience, the creativity, and the bonds formed through shared experiences. He thought of Earth's art, music, and the way they conveyed emotions that transcended language. With a newfound determination, he stepped forward. "I come from a world filled with stories," he began, his voice steady. "A place where we express our experiences through art, music, and dance. I want to share with you a piece of our culture that embodies hope and unity." He picked up a simple acoustic guitar he had noticed resting in the corner of the chamber, its wood polished and inviting. As he strummed the first notes, he felt the power of music weave through the air. He began to sing an original song, one that spoke of connection, love, and the beauty of coming together despite differences. The audience was spellbound, the room filled with a haunting melody and heartfelt lyrics. Paul poured his soul into the performance, conveying emotions that words alone could not express. He could see the council members' faces soften as they absorbed the message of unity and understanding that resonated in the music. As he finished the final chords, silence enveloped the room before applause erupted, echoing against the walls. The council members rose to their feet, their faces glowing with admiration. Even Kalfa, who had initially approached the contest with arrogance, looked surprised, his earlier confidence wavering. The elder counselor stepped forward, his voice filled with gravitas. "Today, you have shown us not only your skills, but your willingness to connect. You have demonstrated that strength lies not only in power, but in understanding and creativity. You have proven that there is more to humanity than we previously knew." The weight of the council's approval settled over Paul, a wave of relief washing over him. He had taken a leap of faith and emerged not only victorious but transformed. A new beginning. With the trials behind him, the elder counselor's voice rang out again. "The council will now convene to discuss our next steps. Your victory in this contest has earned you the opportunity to remain among us, Paul Foster. But know this, trust is earned, and the path forward will not be without its challenges." As Paul glanced at Azora and Leia, he felt a sense of belonging he had never anticipated. He had fought not just for himself, but for the possibility of collaboration between their worlds. The journey ahead would be fraught with uncertainty, but he was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. With Kalfa still looming as a formidable adversary and the complexities of Zarkonian society to navigate, Paul felt a newfound sense of purpose igniting within him. This was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey, one where he would strive to foster unity and understanding, challenging the boundaries of culture and connection. And as he stood there, surrounded by the council and the flickering shadows of his recent struggles, he knew that he was no longer just an outsider. He was a bridge between worlds, a harbinger of change, ready to face the unknown challenges that awaited him in this brave new universe. The gathering storm. As dawn broke over the horizon of Proxima b, a new day unfurled like a canvas painted with vibrant colors, crimson, gold, and deep azure. Paul awoke to the distant sounds of the Zarkonian city bustling with life, the echoes of voices carrying on the wind. It was a stark contrast to the silence of the vastness of space where he had felt so isolated. Here, surrounded by a thriving alien culture, he felt both exhilarated and daunted by the challenges that lay ahead. After the contest, the elder counselor had granted him a brief respite, but the thrill of victory had been overshadowed by an underlying tension. Kulfa's previous arrogance lingered in Paul's mind, a reminder that not everyone was ready to embrace a human among them. As he prepared for the day, he resolved to navigate the complex social landscape of Proxima b, striving to build bridges where walls had stood. A meeting with the council. Later that morning, Paul was summoned back to the council chamber, a place now tinged with anticipation. The grand hall, with its crystalline structure reflecting the light like a prism, seemed to pulse with energy. He entered, his heart racing, as the council members took their seats, their expressions serious. The elder counselor, his imposing figure draped in ceremonial robes, began the session with a gravitas that set the tone. Paul Foster, you have demonstrated extraordinary skill and heart in the contests. However, it is imperative that we address the matter at hand, the growing unrest among certain factions of our people regarding your presence here. Paul's stomach tightened. What do you mean? Kulfa stepped forward, a fire burning in his eyes. There are those who believe that allowing a human to remain on Proxima b is a sign of weakness. They do not trust you, nor do they see the value in what you represent. Your victory in the contests has only intensified their resolve. The murmurs of agreement swept through the chamber like a gust of wind. Paul's mind raced. He had hoped to be seen as an ally, but it seemed that Kulfa's ego had only fueled the flames of dissent. The rising dissent. Who are these factions? Paul asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty clawing at him. They are the traditionalists, the purists, replied the elder counselor, his voice grave. They believe that our culture must remain untainted by outside influences. They fear that your presence may lead to the erosion of our values. What can I do to change their minds? Paul inquired, desperation creeping into his tone. Kulfa leaned forward, a glint of cunning in his gaze. You could organize an exhibition, a demonstration of human culture that highlights your strengths and beliefs. Perhaps even invite those who oppose you to witness firsthand what you have to offer. The elder counselor nodded thoughtfully. This could serve as a platform for understanding, but it is fraught with risk. If the purists reject your presentation, it may deepen their resolve to oust you from our world. I'm willing to take that risk, Paul replied, determination surging through him. If I can show them the beauty of what it means to be human, perhaps they will understand that we are not so different after all. A plan takes shape. With the council's tentative approval, Paul set out to organize the exhibition, a task that seemed monumental in scale. He would need to gather resources, select performances, and present the essence of humanity in a way that would resonate with the Zarkonian people. He quickly realized that he couldn't do it alone. He needed the support of his newfound friends, Azora and Leah. The trio convened in a secluded garden adorned with exotic flora that seemed to glow under the twin suns of Proxima b. The air was thick with the scent of blooming plants, and the sounds of buzzing insects and chirping creatures provided a backdrop of tranquility. Okay, we need to brainstorm ideas, Paul said, pulling out a notepad and a holographic projector. What aspects of human culture should we showcase? Leah's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Music is universal. You should perform a song that reflects our struggles and triumphs. It can convey emotions that words alone cannot. Azora nodded in agreement. Art and dance should also play a role. They can illustrate the richness of human experience. Perhaps we can invite some of our skilled performers to collaborate with you. Great ideas, Paul replied, his heart racing at the possibilities. But we need to highlight our achievements too, our innovations in science, our capacity for compassion, and our history of overcoming adversity. As they continued to brainstorm, they decided to combine elements of performance art with multimedia presentations, crafting a narrative that showcased humanity's journey through a mix of music, dance, visual storytelling, and interactive experiences. The unexpected visitor. Just as they were finalizing their plans, Kalfa appeared, an air of confidence surrounding him. "I have come to see what the humans are plotting," he said with a smirk. "You think you can sway the purists with your little show?" Paul met his gaze with a steady resolve. "We're not plotting anything. We're trying to foster understanding and connection. Perhaps if you joined us, it would help bridge the gap between our cultures." Kalfa chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Join you? Why would I do that? You believe you can charm the council with your trivial pursuits. But know this, the purists are not so easily swayed." "We're not trying to charm anyone," Paul replied, maintaining his composure. "We're aiming for something deeper, a shared experience that transcends our differences." Kalfa raised an eyebrow, his amusement turning into something more calculating. "You underestimate us, human. The purists respect strength, and your attempts to present your culture will be viewed as an act of desperation. It would be wise to prepare for the consequences." As Kalfa strode away, Paul felt a mix of frustration and resolve. He would not allow Kalfa's cynicism to derail his vision. Instead, he took it as motivation to make the exhibition a powerful testament to human resilience and creativity. The day of the exhibition. Days turned into weeks as Paul, Azora, and Leah prepared tirelessly for the exhibition. They worked late into the night, crafting presentations, rehearsing performances, and gathering support from other Zarkonian citizens who believed in the potential for unity. Word spread throughout the city, and despite the looming threat of the purists, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and anticipation. On the day of the exhibition, the main plaza transformed into a vibrant spectacle. Colorful banners hung from the towering structures, and holographic displays illuminated the sky with images of humanity's greatest achievements, moments of kindness, innovation, and connection. As the crowd gathered, Paul stood backstage, anxiety bubbling within him. The council members took their seats, the murmurs of the audience blending into a sea of sound. He could spot Kalfa lurking in the back, arms crossed, an inscrutable expression on his face. With a deep breath, he stepped onto the stage, the lights illuminating him as he faced the crowd. The weight of their gazes bore down on him, but he reminded himself of the purpose behind this event. He wasn't just here to showcase humanity, he was here to forge a connection. "Greetings, Zarkonians," Paul called out, his voice steady. "Today, we celebrate the rich tapestry of human culture, a culture built on resilience, creativity, and the desire for understanding. We are not so different. We share a common longing for connection and the pursuit of knowledge." As he launched into the first song, the audience fell silent, enraptured by the melody that resonated with emotion. Paul felt the music flow through him, weaving its way into the hearts of those who listened. He poured every ounce of passion into the performance, using the notes to bridge the chasm of understanding that separated their worlds. The turning tide. As the performance unfolded, Paul showcased elements of human culture, dance, art, and storytelling, each piece carefully curated to evoke empathy and curiosity. The audience began to react, their faces shifting from skepticism to wonder. Laughter and applause punctuated the air as they witnessed the vibrancy of human life through Paul's eyes. After the musical performances concluded, Azora and Leah took the stage, dazzling the audience with a dance that blended Zarkonian and human styles, a celebration of their collective creativity. The crowd erupted into cheers, the energy palpable as they witnessed a fusion of cultures. Finally, it was time for the interactive segment of the exhibition. Paul invited members of the audience to participate in a collaborative art piece, a mural that would symbolize their shared dreams and aspirations. The Zarkonians stepped forward hesitantly at first, but as the colors splashed onto the canvas, they found joy in creating together. A fateful encounter. In the midst of the celebration, as Paul painted alongside the Zarkonian citizens, he felt a presence approach him. It was Kalthar, his expression inscrutable. "You have managed to impress the council with your theatrics," he said, his tone laced with grudging respect. "But this does not change the minds of the purists." Paul wiped his hands on a cloth and met Kalthar's gaze. "Maybe not yet, but change takes time. We're here to learn from each other, to grow together. Isn't that worth something?" Kalthar's expression softened ever so slightly, as if the seeds of doubt were beginning to sprout in his mind. "You speak of unity, but not everyone sees it that way. There will always be those who fear the unknown." "Fear can be overcome," Paul replied, his voice earnest. "It starts with understanding. I want to be a part of this world, not an outsider. We can build something beautiful together." Kalthar hesitated, the conflict within him evident. Perhaps you have more to offer than I initially believed. But understand this, the purists will not yield easily. You will need to be prepared for the storm that is coming." As Kalthar walked away, Paul felt a flicker of hope. The exhibition had sparked something profound within the Zarkonians, but the real test of their resolve was yet to come. Would they embrace this newfound understanding, or would the shadows of fear and doubt reignite? A new dawn. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the crowd began to disperse, their hearts filled with curiosity and excitement. The exhibition had been a success beyond Paul's wildest dreams, but he knew it was only the first step in a long journey toward true acceptance. That night, as he reflected on the day's events, he felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. He had opened a door, but it was up to the Zarkonians to choose whether to walk through it. Kalthar's warning echoed in his mind, a reminder that change often comes with resistance. Yet, despite the uncertainties ahead, Paul felt a renewed sense of purpose burning within him. He was no longer just a human on an alien world. He was a catalyst for transformation, a bridge between cultures. With every challenge he faced, he would strive to demonstrate the power of empathy, creativity, and understanding. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, he knew that whatever storm may come, he was ready to weather it. He was here to stay, and he would fight for the connection that could change everything. The story of humanity on Proxima b had only just begun. The storm breaks. The tranquility that had followed the exhibition was short-lived. As the sun dipped below the horizon of Proxima b, the landscape transformed, cloaked in twilight. Paul felt a growing tension in the air, a sense that the harmony he had worked so hard to establish was about to be tested. Whispers of dissent permeated the Zarkonian society, igniting fear among the purists who saw his presence as a threat to their very existence. That evening, as Paul sat in the garden surrounded by a sea of flowers that shimmered with bioluminescent colors, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Azora and Leah joined him, their expressions grave. "We need to talk," Azora said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The purists are rallying. They've been gathering support, and Kalthar is at the forefront, urging them to take action against you." Paul's heart sank. What kind of action? Leah leaned closer, her eyes wide with concern. "There are rumors of protests, maybe even an attempt to expel you from Proxima b. They believe that your influence will corrupt our culture." "Why can't they see that I'm here to learn, to share, to grow with them?" Paul exclaimed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "After everything we've done, how can they still hold on to that fear?" "Fear is a powerful motivator," Azora replied, her tone somber. "They don't understand humanity the way we do. To them, you are an outsider, and they see your differences as weaknesses." Planning for the storm, determined not to let fear dictate the narrative, Paul decided that he would confront the situation head-on. We need to organize a counter-movement, he proposed, his resolve hardening. We can't let the purists control the narrative. We have to show them that unity is stronger than division. What do you have in mind? Leah asked, her curiosity piqued. We could hold a public forum, an open discussion where everyone can voice their concerns, share their experiences, and witness firsthand the benefits of collaboration, Paul suggested. If we can bring everyone together in a neutral space, we might be able to quell the unrest. Azora nodded, her eyes brightening with hope. That's a fantastic idea. But we'll need to ensure that we have strong support from the Council. If we can get them on board, it will give us more credibility. Paul agreed. They spent the next few hours crafting a plan, gathering allies from both the progressive and neutral factions of Zarkonian society, aiming to create a coalition strong enough to counter the purist narrative. It was a race against time, and they knew the stakes were higher than ever. The council meeting. The following day, Paul, Azora, and Leah presented their proposal to the Elder Council. The council chamber buzzed with anticipation as they stepped forward, the weight of their message heavy in the air. Paul could feel the tension radiating from the council members, especially Colthar, who sat with his arms crossed, a skeptical expression etched on his face. "Honored councillors," Paul began, his voice steady but passionate. "We find ourselves at a critical juncture. The unrest among our people threatens to divide us, and it is essential that we come together to address these concerns head-on. I propose a public forum, an opportunity for open dialogue where we can foster understanding and dispel the myths surrounding my presence." The elder councillor raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you think that this will be effective? The purists are not known for their willingness to listen." "Because we can show them the value of our differences," Paul replied, drawing from his own experiences. "I have learned so much from Azora and Leah, and I know that their voices, along with those of others who support this collaboration, will make an impact. If we don't take this step, we risk allowing fear to dictate our future." Kalthar scoffed. "You believe that a mere discussion can quell the anger of those who view you as a threat? You underestimate their resolve. They see you as an invader." "Then let them voice their concerns openly," Paul retorted, his voice rising slightly. "Let us address their fears with facts, with our shared experiences. If we ignore this, the rift will only widen. We need to act now before it's too late." After a long deliberation, the council agreed to the forum, albeit reluctantly. "We will allow this public discussion to take place," the elder councillor announced. "But know this, Paul Foster, if the purists escalate their actions during this forum, you will bear the consequences." "I understand," Paul replied, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over him. The day of the forum. The day of the forum arrived with a heavy overcast sky, mirroring the unease that hung over Proxima B. Paul stood at the front of a grand assembly hall, which had been filled to capacity. Zarkonians of all walks of life filled the seats, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. You could spot Kalthar in the back, flanked by a group of purists, their faces hard and resolute. "Thank you all for coming today," Paul began, his voice echoing in the large chamber. "This forum represents a chance for us to speak openly about our differences, our fears, and our hopes for a future where we can coexist." He invited Azora and Leah to join him on stage, their presence serving as a testament to the friendships they had forged. "Together, we have worked to understand one another, to celebrate our differences rather than fear them." Paul then opened the floor for discussion, allowing anyone to voice their thoughts. Initially, there were murmurs of discontent and skepticism. A member of the purist faction stood up, his voice booming through the hall. "Why should we trust a human? Your presence is a poison that will seep into our culture and destroy it from within." Paul took a deep breath, his heart racing. "I understand your fears. Change can be daunting, but I stand before you not to impose my culture, but to share it. Together, we can learn from one another and create a society that is richer for our diversity." A heated debate. The discussions grew increasingly heated as members of the purist faction voiced their concerns. You think you can come here and change us? We have stood proud for generations, and we will not let a mere human dictate our future, another shouted. Change is inevitable, Azora interjected, her voice calm but firm. We can either face it together or allow it to divide us. The choice is ours. As the debate raged on, Paul felt a growing sense of urgency. He knew that if he did not find a way to connect with those who opposed him, the forum could spiral into chaos. Perhaps we can share our experiences, he suggested, to illustrate the power of collaboration. For instance, let me tell you about my experiences in the military, how we worked together as a team, overcoming insurmountable odds through trust and unity. As he spoke, he recounted the challenges he had faced on Earth, wars fought not just for territory, but for the hope of a better future, for freedom and understanding. He wove stories of camaraderie and sacrifice, painting a vivid picture of what it meant to stand united against adversity. A turning point. His words seemed to resonate with some in the audience. A young Zarkonian woman rose, her voice trembling. I lost my brother in the last conflict with the Letharians. I thought that strength meant standing alone. But maybe there is strength in accepting help. Paul seized the moment. Exactly. By learning from each other, we can become stronger. Imagine what we could achieve together if we combined our strengths, your knowledge of your world with our innovations from Earth. Slowly, the tone of the forum began to shift. More individuals rose to share their stories, their fears beginning to dissipate as they realized they were not alone in their struggles. The barriers started to crack, replaced by a sense of shared humanity. The climax of tension. However, just as the discussion began to take a more positive turn, Kalfa stood up, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. This is nonsense. You think you can simply talk your way into our hearts? You are wasting our time. The audience fell silent, tension coiling in the air. Kalfa continued, his tone dripping with disdain. You may have won a few hearts with your theatrics, but you cannot change the minds of those who see the truth. Your presence is a threat to our very way of life. Paul met Kalfa's gaze, determination surging through him. And what is your truth? That we should live in fear of one another. That we should deny the possibility of a brighter future. I refuse to accept that. The world is changing, Kalfa. You can either fight it or be a part of it. The crowd erupted into murmurs, a palpable energy surging through the hall. Some members of the purist faction exchanged uncertain glances, their resolve beginning to falter in the face of Paul's passionate plea. An unexpected ally. Just then, an unexpected figure stepped forward, a council member who had previously remained silent throughout the forum. Kalfa, I have watched you closely. Your fear has clouded your judgment. I was skeptical of this human too, but I have seen the change that can happen when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and open. The murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. Kalfa's expression shifted, caught off guard by the sudden wave of support for Paul. This is our moment, Azora whispered to Paul, her eyes shining with hope. With a newfound sense of solidarity, the forum transformed from a battleground into a place of connection. Zarkonians began to reach across the divide, sharing their hopes and dreams, while acknowledging their fears. The aftermath. As the forum drew to a close, Paul felt a sense of relief wash over him. Though the storm had tested their resolve, it had ultimately forged new connections. People who had once been adversaries began to see each other as allies. Kalfa stood silent, the flicker of doubt crossing his features. Perhaps he realized that the tide was turning, and he would have to adapt or be left behind. As Paul stepped down from the stage, he was met with warm smiles and handshakes from those who had been touched by his words. He had opened the door to understanding, and though the path ahead remained uncertain, he felt a newfound determination to see this journey through. With Azora and Leah by his side, Paul knew that together they could navigate the challenges ahead. The struggle was far from over, but the first step had been taken. They had planted the seeds of change, and with time, he believed they would blossom into a future where humans and Zarkonians could thrive side by side. the calm before the next storm. As night fell, Paul gazed up at the stars shining brightly against the indigo sky. The battle for acceptance had begun, and while the storms of resistance still loomed, the foundation for a united future had been laid. He could almost feel the pulse of Proxima b, a world that was on the brink of transformation, and he was determined to be part of that change, no matter the cost. In that moment, he knew that the true measure of courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it with hope and determination. The story of humanity on Proxima b was far from over. It was only just beginning.